What's up guys, my name's Ash and welcome back to a brand new video. In today's video guys, I've got some custom tactics and player instructions for the 4-4-2 formation, one of the most balanced formations in FIFA 23. But just before we get started guys, I would very much appreciate it if you could drop this a thumbs up. It's time for shapeshifters, so if you guys need any coins, make sure you check out MMOXP.com. Their link is down in the description. They're fast, cheap and reliable, and if you use my code Rema, you can get yourself a very nice 5% discount. Alright then guys, so starting off with the custom tactics, for the defensive style I like to have this on balanced. Now the reason we have this on balanced is because it gives us the best control over our defenders. So when we need to press, we're able to press, and then when we want to drop off, be a little bit more conservative, we are also able to do that, which is why balanced is so good, as it does give you that control. Moving on to the defensive width guys, I like to have this on 39. The reason I have it on around about 39 is because I want my defense to be primarily narrow and compact, which will stop our opponents being able to just play right through the middle of us. We don't want to have the width too low, however, otherwise it becomes impossible to defend those wider attacks because we have no natural width to our team. So you can pretty much use anywhere between like 35 and 45, and I would say that is perfect. Now moving on to the depth guys, I have this on 65. This is so we can actually win the ball higher up the pitch and we're not always getting pinned back in our own box, which is super useful. The reason I don't up the depth anymore though is because I don't want my defensive line to always be that crazy high to the point where one through ball will always destroy us. So we've got a high defensive line but not too high. Now moving on to build-up play guys, I have this on balanced. The reason we have it on balanced is because it is by far the most consistent form of build-up. When you use balanced, it's a lot more varied than something like fast build-up, because for example, if you use fast build-up, you always have to build up quickly. The same way if you use slow build-up, you always have to build up slowly. But with balanced, you can really pick and choose when and where you use which type of build-up, which is why I like it. It's super versatile and the most meta option. Moving on to chance creation guys, as always I suggest direct passing. This is because direct passing is by far the most meta in the game. What makes direct passing so good is when you are attacking, your attacking players will bunch up against the opposition defenders, meaning you can do super overpowered 1v1 isolation plays to create many chances. Players will also make those extra movements in the box so you can get off that extra pass to guarantee the goals. Direct passing is an absolute must in my opinion. Moving on to the attacking width guys, I like to have this on about 46. The reason I have it on this is because we don't want our attack to be like crazy narrow, because it will feel like your players are glued together and sat on top of each other, which is not ideal. And on the flip side, we don't want to have a crazy high width because there's just too great of a distance between all of your players, which makes it actually very difficult to link up any play. So we kind of like to go for something in between where it's neither too narrow nor too wide. Now moving on to the players in box guys, we have this on 5. This is bang in the middle. This is so we can get a few players into the box to finish off those chances, but at the same time we don't overcommit the entire team to the point where we're always getting counter-attacked. As for corners and free kicks, I have these both on 1 because there is a set piece routine that I use which requires these to be on 1. There is a link to that in the top right hand corner of the screen. Now moving on to the players you want to use guys, in the two striker positions, what I suggest is going for a bit of a balance between the two players. So what I like to do is go for one more creative player on the left side and then a more clinical finisher on the other side. The reason we do this is because it makes your attack a lot more varied and restricts you a lot less when you are going forward. For example, if you use two out and out finishers in those striker positions, you're very limited in the way you attack because those strikers are not always super technical, which means you're not going to be able to dribble with them, you're not really going to be able to do nice link-up plays with them. All you're going to be able to do is through ball to them and cross to them and hope that they finish off a chance. But if you implement a more creative player into the strike force, you can actually do a lot more as a result because the player is a lot more technical and it does make attacking a lot easier in my opinion. Moving on to the right mid and the left mid guys, I suggest you use wingers. This is because they're actually going to be very attacking, and wingers are usually the best in these wider positions of course because they have really good pace and dribbling and skill moves. It's also important that these players can actually finish off chances, because there are a lot of times where they will get into those shooting positions. But yeah, just make sure they're really good, like attacking winger style players. You really don't have to worry about their defensive stats. It's not an issue, just an added bonus if you can get a player with decent defending as well. Now, moving on to the left centre mid guys, I like to go for a more defensive minded midfielder. This is somebody that's actually going to stay back, break up the play and be as defensive as possible. So I would suggest somebody with a medium high work rate, if you can get it, as you get the maximum contribution in defence and they're not too bothered about going forward. Moving on to the right centre mid guys, I like to go for a more box to box style player. This is somebody that's going to attack and defend, so I would suggest somebody with a high work rate, as you get that maximum contribution in both the attack and the defense, but just ensure that this player has a very nice well-rounded card so that they're capable of doing a bit of everything. Moving on to the two fullbacks guys, what I like to do is go for a balance between the two. So I like to go for a more technical, almost attacking minded fullback in Roberto Carlos in the left back position, and then I like to go for a more defensively solid player but maybe lacks the technical ability in the right back position. That's just something I like to do. You guys don't have to if you don't want to. As for the two centre backs and the goalkeeper, these just need to be the full meta players. There's really not too much to say about them, to be honest with you. Now, moving on to the player instructions guys, on both the strikers I like to have them on stay central and get in behind. We have them on stay central because we don't want them drifting off into the wider areas. They are our strikers, so it is important that they do maintain those central positions, which is why stay central is super useful. We also have them on getting behind, as they're always looking to make those dangerous runs in behind to get us as many chances as possible. Now, I always use getting behind on both of them by default, but if you're struggling against like a higher end opponent, what you can do is put your more creative player on mixed attack, as they make more versatile movements and it just becomes a little bit easier to build up the play. But against most people, getting behind is fine on both of them in my opinion. Moving on to the right mid and the left mid, I have them on comeback on defense, cut inside, getting behind and get into the box for cross. We have them on comeback on defense, so we always ensure that they sit in the correct positions when we don't have the ball. If you have them on basic defensive support, they can be a little bit lazy and not too useful, but when you have them on comeback on defense, it just ensures that they keep the correct position and makes us as solid as possible. We also have them on cut inside, so they're always looking to make those narrow runs in the middle to help out the strikers and get into the narrow spaces, which are very difficult to mark. They're not always too useful out wide, which is why we do want them to cut inside, in my opinion. We also have them on getting behind, so they're always looking to make those darting runs and make the most of their pace. And then we also have them on get into the box for cross, so they're not hesitant to get into the penalty area when we do approach it. So if you have them on balanced crossing runs, they can be a little bit hesitant and not do too much. Moving on to the left centre mid, the more defensive minded player, we have them on stay back and cover centre. We have him on stay back, so he's always looking to stay back. He won't join the attack and will be as defensively solid as possible. And then we also have him on cover centre, so he does defend those central areas. For the right centre mid, the more box to box style player, we have him on the default settings and cover centre. We have him on the default settings because, like I said, he's a box to box. He's got a bit of a free roll, so we don't really want to restrict him all that much. The only important thing is that we have him on cover centre, so he does defend those central areas. As for both the fullbacks guys, I like to have them on stay back while attacking and overlap. We have them on stay back, so our defensive line's always intact, and it's a lot more difficult for your opponent to just one through ball you down the line because your fullbacks aren't always overcommitting forward. We do have them on the overlap run type, however, so when we do send them on a run forward, they'll make the overlapping runs to add extra width. When I want to attack with the fullbacks in game, I'll often use the D-pad tactics to send up the attacking fullbacks, and then you can just turn it off in the D-pad whenever you want. As for the centre backs and the keeper, these are on the default settings and I don't touch them. But yeah guys, they are my custom tactics and player instructions for the 4-4-2. If you have enjoyed or found it useful, please be sure to drop it a like, sub to the channel if you are new, and don't forget to turn on notifications. And with all that aside guys, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll catch you all in the next one.